Am I learning and growing? What is my truth in this moment? How do I feel? Faster. Why do I want to go faster? And success. What does that even mean? What you just witnessed are two conversations that happen in my brain every single day. Worry and wonder. Worry is the chatter that ruminates on the past and feels anxiety for the future. Worry is the part of me that wants to play it safe, color inside the lines, and never shake things up. Because of worry, I didn't get on the stage for many years to share the story because I had chatter telling me, your story doesn't matter, and you're not ready yet. And that's what worry does. Worry creates ripples of fears, and worry stunts our progress. Thankfully, there's wonder, and she's got her back. Wonder is the investigative sidekick that dives deep into my worries, gets to their origin, and helps me to create new and more empowering storylines. Wonder is the creative muse that always encourages me to go beyond my comfort zone, even when it feels terrifying to do so. Wonder is the voice that says, give it a try, follow your curiosities, and come on, let yourself have some fun in the process. Wonder is the Zen master that always brings me back to the magic, this present moment, and helps me see that the magic is right here, right now. When I choose wonder, doors open, dots connect, and I get this feeling that I'm on Synchronicity Highway. Now, if given the option to hang out with wonder or to hang out with worry, who would you choose? Wonder. Why wouldn't we choose wonder? That answer seems obvious, right? It's not quite that simple. I recently met a neurosurgeon at Stanford and the creator of the Center of Compassion and Altruism, Dr. James Gotti. And he shared with me a study that showed that 80% of our time and attention is spent with regret on the past or anxiety on the future. 80% of our time is spent worrying. 80% of our time has this voice in our head. And if you're like me, you might wonder, how is it that we're spending so much time on some story in our head telling us something that might not even be true? When I look back on my own life, I see myself as a kid filled with infinite wonder and curiosity for the world around me. I was raised by an entrepreneurial mom who always encouraged me to explore my creative ideas. Whether I was leaving love notes on cars, selling candy to the neighborhood, or creating some make-believe story, I was always out creating and making. I grew up next to Bob, the computer guy, who built and sold computers, and some of my fondest memories as a kid are in the computer lab playing and learning with him. When I was 11, I started to notice that the content available for girls my age, telling you what to wear and how to please and how to get boys to like you, just wasn't that interesting. And I wanted to change the conversation. Completely led and devoted to this sense of wonder, I went into AOL chat rooms and I told people about my idea, told them about this magazine that I wanted to start, and ended up building it to 5,000 young women with 2 corporate sponsors. Plans or, objectives for how to get there. I was 11. But I was completely devoted to what had me feel curious and alive. This all began to shift, though, when I entered high school and college, and my attention turned to competition, maintaining an A average, beating the boys in calculus, and doing things perfectly. Perfect, perfect, perfect. The pursuit of perfect began to rule my life, and worry began to take over. I developed eating disorders. I was seeking external validation as proof of my own my self-worth, and popping Adderall and pulling all-nighters to reach goals I didn't really believe in, to reach goals that I had never created for myself, to reach goals that I had never thought to question. This desire to perform, this desire to excel, it did lead me to make strides in my career left and right. Worked with Apple, helped Fortune 100 companies with their global marketing efforts, helped author Seth Godin start a publishing company with Amazon. I was doing, but in that pursuit of doing, I had forgotten about being. And in that, I became very disconnected from myself and the wisdom inside. This disconnection spiraled into one particularly dark and dreary afternoon when I found myself on the floor of my Tribeca, New York apartment in a full-on panic attack. My mind was racing, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. I actually thought in that moment that I might be dying. My boss was in the other room, and we were supposed to be having a status update on where we were at in the business. Yet, here I was on the floor in this moment of disarray. That boss, by the way, was Ryan, which is kind of funny. Full circle. So there I was, so embarrassed that he was there, and what he did next deeply surprised me. He walked into the room I was in, he came up to me, he put his right hand on my shoulder, and he put his left hand on his heart. And he said, Amber, if you're ever lost, listen here. Now, this is when Ryan was in full-on business mode. And this is not what I expected him to say. This is the last thing that I expected him to say. But that wisdom and that reminder inspired me to tune inward, and it helped me realize that I'd forgotten to listen to myself. So in that moment, I closed my eyes, and I can vividly remember what a voice said. The voice said, Amber, the way you're living and being and doing right now, you can choose differently. And you can choose differently right now. That realization woke me up from my self-created trap of worry. I had created this cage of worry, and helped me realize that in my pocket was the key, and I had forgotten all along. And that key was getting quiet, journaling every morning, creating the space to hear myself, and slowly over time, wonder began to show back up. What's interesting about this moment in time is that from the outside looking in, no one knew the hell that I was going through on the inside. I didn't even know the hell that I was going through on the inside, because for so long I had trained myself to see the silver lining in everything and to replace sadness with happiness. That's how I was dealing with the uncomfortable things in my life. I was saying, shh, you're not welcome here. Go away. And that is when worry becomes dangerous. When we sweep it under the rug, when we push it away, when we avoid it, and when we tell it to be quiet. The dangerous kind of worry is why high school suicides are increasing due to the pressure to perform. It's why advertising's Photoshop beauty ideals have led the average adult woman to have 13 thoughts of self-hate a day. It's why 90% of the global workforce is unfulfilled and unhappy. It's why the top regret of those on their deathbed is, I wish I would have lived a life true to me and not the life that others expected. It's why when I talk to my brilliant creative and entrepreneurial friends and they are stressed and they are burnt out, it's because they don't have a safe space to talk about it, to let their worries and fears be heard. A safe space like we're creating here today. That is when worry is dangerous. I do have some good news though. The good news is that when we use wonder to inquire into our worries, and when we choose to see the world through a lens of wonder, we can rewire our brain and change the reality that we live in. It's called neuroplasticity, and it refers to the science that our brains can actually change when we train them to do so. Think of it like you're training for a marathon, and that marathon is your most wondrous life possible. Every time you choose wonder, when you're falling down the rabbit hole of worry, you rewire that part of your brain and you create new possibilities for yourself. It's a skill that invites a daily practice. I was recently interviewed by this woman, and she said to me, "So Amber, even after experiencing success in your life, how have you silenced the voice of self-doubt?" Silence the voice of self-doubt, I thought? She's here every single day! Whether I'm getting on stage, whether I'm about to enter an important meeting, or whether an amazing opportunity emerges, worry can consume me if I'm not paying attention. The trick is to catch it real time. I call these moments wonderventions. And every time I'm falling into worry and it's getting really loud, I can't hear myself, I'm getting disconnected from the moment and who I am truly, I'll pause and I'll lean into wonder. So let's walk through an example. Last week, actually, I was going to interview someone for a podcast that I'm launching next month, and 6 hours before this meeting, I noticed worry getting really loud. Now, this person is someone whose work I've followed for many, many years. I deeply respect and admire them, and just who they are in the world really moves me. And so worry starts getting noisy, saying things like, "Are you gonna ask the right questions? Is he gonna like you? What if you guys don't connect? What if the technology doesn't work?" And on and on and on and on. I had all of these worried voices in my head. Have you ever entered something important and then had a lot of that chatter? So I want to walk you through a process that I've sort of uncovered and stumbled into around shifting from worry to wonder. First, you breathe. Yeah. And you take a deep breath in and out, and you take as many deep breaths until that chatter becomes quiet. And once the chatter is quiet, you name the worry and you create a character around it. So in this situation, I had two worries coming up. One, the approval-seeking warrior who wanted connection and to be liked, and the perfectionist warrior who wanted the thing to go perfectly. And what happens when I create these characters and I name them is I create distance from those voices in my head to something that's outside of me. And that allows me to have zoom out and have distance. And then once they're named, there's distance, there's characters, the third step is to have a conversation with that worried voice. So it might look like this. "Hey, approval-seeking warrior, I totally get that you want to connect with him. I totally get that you want to be respected by him, and I can understand that that's coming from a really pure and beautiful place. And I honor you for desiring connection. The thing is that when you're rattling off these voices, it's going to prevent you from connecting. So I'm going to ask that you take a step back and you let wonder show up, and be love and be curiosity. Can you do that? And then what happens in that moment is that I've allowed that inner child part of me that just wants to be seen and heard and felt and acknowledged and held and loved to be seen. And that's the place from which it can dissolve. I hear a lot of conversation around overcoming fear, conquering resistance. And that's good and well, but oftentimes our resistance just wants to be acknowledged, like a child within us throwing a tantrum. Once I've talked with worry, I then invite the wisdom of wonder. And I say, "Hey, wonder, I know you've got some wisdom for me in this moment. What do you got?" And wonder's like my, BFF, #1 cheerleader grandmother who's on my side. And wonder will say something like, "Here's the thing, Amber. You have the unique opportunity to walk into this meeting and to pull out wisdom such that you can package it and share it with the world, and other people can benefit from it. How cool is that? And what wonder will do is take me away out of the me voice in my head so I can see the bigger picture and know why I'm walking into that meaning, so I can tune in and focus there. So that's an example of shifting from worry into wonder and how we can step into these moments of wondervention. I want to talk next about a really big worry that has come up for me again and again and again. And the thing about these worries is that sometimes they can create large, expansive stories in our lives without us even realizing it. And so I'm going to take you on a journey through that now. The big worry that I've faced is, does my voice matter? Does my story matter? Have you ever felt that for yourself?
Yes.
But I'm not alone. So, I once had someone who I really looked up to and admire say to me, "No one cares about your story ever." This person is a world-renowned artist, speaker, and author. And as an aspiring world-renowned artist, speaker, and author, this is about the worst possible thing you could have ever said to me. That's not the worst part, though. The worst part is that I believed him. My ego was so bruised from our interaction that I never thought to ask him, "What do you mean when you say my story doesn't matter?" Because I'm sure he had a gem of wisdom to share. Instead, I let his words rumble through my being as truth, and from that day forward, I created and I reinforced a very dangerous and a very damaging story. My story doesn't matter. My voice doesn't matter. My ideas don't matter. Do I matter? This story played out to the point that I began editing myself out of the things that I wrote. Speaking opportunities emerged, and I couldn't do it because I couldn't create anything that I could get my whole heart behind. I stumbled when the opportunity to write a book emerged. "Your story doesn't matter," Worry said. "Go find other stories to tell." I stopped working out my own visions and ideas for the world, and I began getting behind other people's instead. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting behind other people's visions, we need that, it's important, I knew I had something rumbling inside of me that needed and must be shared with the world, but I rejected and I denied that part of me. It was really only recently that I began to realize how this story was playing its grip on me. Wonder was there, showing me clues of the things that I was so strong to. Wonder led me to stories where authors revealed deep truth and vulnerability. Wonder led me into art galleries and into creative studios where all of these ideas and dots were connecting and coming to the surface. Wonder led me to ask hundreds of New Yorkers about their hopes, their dreams, their fears, and the world that they wanted to live in, which then turned into a global art project. It's as if Wonder were there waving her wand saying, this way, come with me." And she was, because that's what wonder does. Wonder stands as the path to what's possible. Wonder brings light when worry is trapped in darkness. As I was preparing this talk and preparing to get up here with you, this worry showed up again and again and again. I was so confronted in this talk writing process because worry said, "Ooh, they're going to judge you when you share that. You're talking too much about yourself in that story. Please F yourself out." But Wonder would smile ever so gracefully and remind me that when we conceal our truth, we limit our ability to connect with the world around us. Stories are what unite us. And as I heard from Oprah herself at a talk she gave in the UN, these 8 words sent goosebumps up my spine. Every human wants to feel like they matter. Every human wants to feel like they matter. Oprah's given over 35,000 interviews, from Beyonce to someone who murdered their children. And after every single interview, Oprah would be asked, Beyonce would ask, was that okay? Did I do okay? The person who murdered their children would ask, was that okay? Did I do okay? The point is, we all want to be seen and heard and felt and acknowledged. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is through pulling out the vulnerable bits within us and allowing those to be seen by the world. That's why I want you to know that you matter, your ideas matter, your story matters. The truth within you that feels really fucking terrifying to express really fucking matters. And it is wonder who will guide you to exploring and revealing those parts within you. I want to close today with a picture of a piece of pottery that I like to think of as the Wonder Bowl. It's inspired by the Japanese art of kintsugi, which takes shattered pottery and pieces it back together with gold lacquer. The process doesn't hide the fact that the pottery is shattered. In fact, it celebrates those cracks and imperfections as making the piece even more unique. When I look at this piece of pottery, I see a metaphor for worry and wonder. Worry are the cracks, the vulnerable parts that, if not handled with love and care and compassion and gentleness, will cause the bowl to fall apart. But with the wonder wand, with the gold lacquer, that takes all of those imperfections and celebrates them, what we create is a unique piece of art that would have never before existed. And that piece of art is our lives. So, as your Hive adventure continues, and you notice a worry come up for you, I invite you to create a character around it, have a conversation around it, and maybe share it with someone else. Thank you.